Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kendra and today I'm going to be doing my April book haul. I have a decent sized stack of books to go through. I have my book of the month books and I have some books from publishers that I've received, and I also have a book that I won from a giveaway, and then also I only purchased one book this month, so let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to go over all of the book of the month selections that I picked for April. The first book that I want to talk about is Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bowley. This book I am super excited that I picked because I've been dying to read this one. This is about a girl. She's about to go off to college. However, she has to stay at home because of her fragile mother. So then she ends up meeting this boy from her brother's hockey team, and she suspects that he is hiding something, and then she witnesses a murder and the FBI gets involved, and it has something to do with like a new lethal drug. So this sounds so fascinating, and like I said, I am super excited that I picked this one. The next book that I have is Liberty by Caitlin Greenridge, and this is about a Black woman, and she is one of the first female doctors. So this definitely sounds like it's going to be absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited to read this one. The next book that I have is What Comes After by Joanne Tompkins. This is a mystery, and it's about this town where two boys died, and then one day this girl came out of the woods super randomly, and she was pregnant, and I guess she like inserts her life into these two boys' families, and somehow the boys and that were killed and her have, I guess, some type of connection. I'm really not sure. This book sounds very interesting, and I'm really excited to figure out what this mystery is. And the last book of the month book that I have is The Hunting Wives by May Cobb, and this is a thriller, and it's about this family. They move to another town, and the wife is bored, and she ends up finding this group called the Hunting Wives, and they like to party and do all kinds of stuff. Where they like to meet, there is a teenage girl's body that is found, and now she is in the middle of a murder investigation. So this sounds like it's going to be super interesting, and I'm really excited to pick this one up. Next, I'm going to go through the books that I received from publishers. I am very grateful that they sent these to me, so I'm so excited to read these and let you know my reviews on all of them. The first book that I want to talk about is A Dark and Secret Place by Jen Williams. I received this book from Crooked Lane, and this book comes out in June. This is a psychological thriller, and it's about this woman. She comes home because her mom committed suicide, and when she gets home, she finds all of these letters from a serial killer that has been in prison for 20 years, and she started to think that there are connections between why her mother committed suicide and the serial killer. So this sounds like it's going to be super fascinating, and I'm really excited to read this one. The next book that I have is The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot, and this is by Marianne Cronin, and I received this one from Harper, and this one also comes out in June. This is about a girl. She is living on the terminal ward at a hospital, and she meets this older woman who is also there because she's at the end of her life, and they end up having this connection, and I believe it's just them living out their last days. I know this is probably gonna be super heartbreaking, but it sounds like it's gonna be very sweet, and I'm really excited to pick this one up, even though I know it's going to be super heartbreaking, so I'll definitely have the tissues ready. The next book that I have is The Perfect Ruin by Shanora Williams, and I received this one from Dafina Publishing, and this one comes out in July, and this one is a domestic suspense. This is about a woman. She has had a pretty bad life, and she ends up discovering this lady. She is a billionaire, and she ends up basically trying to insert her life into this woman's, and she basically tries to take over. She ends up sleeping with her husband and all kinds of crazy things. So this sounds like it's going to be very interesting, and I'm excited to pick this one up. The next book that I have is Sisters of the Resistance by Kristen Wells, and I received this one from William Morrow, and this one comes out in June. This is a historical fiction set during World War II in France, and you're following this woman. She ends up joining the resistance, and one of the women that is head of it is actually the sister of Christian Dior, which is the fashion designer. So this sounds like it's going to be super fascinating, and I'm really excited to pick this one up. The next book that I have is The End of Men by Christina Sweeney Baird. I received a finished copy from Putnam, and this is a dystopian novel. This is set in 2025, and it's about this virus that ends up killing off all of men in the world. So it's about a world that only has women left. So this definitely sounds like it's going to be super fascinating, and I'm really excited to pick this one up. The next book that I have is The Perfect Daughter by DJ Palmer. This book came out also this month, and I received this one from St. Martin's Press. I have already read this one, absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. This is about Grace, her daughter Penny. She ends up getting a call from the police, and they find out that she is at a woman's house, and she is covered in her blood, and she's holding the murder weapon. So she ends up getting convicted of the murder, and the daughter actually has a severe multiple personality disorder. So the daughter really has no idea what happened because she has different alters. So this book, and is also set in a psychiatric ward because that's where she ends up going before she is brought to trial. This book, highly recommend picking this one up, and I'll give you my final thoughts on this one in my April wrap-up. The next book that I have is No Hiding in Boise by Kim Harper. I received this one from Keylight Books, and this one comes out in June. This is I believe it's like a mystery, and it's about this woman. She gets a phone call from the police saying that her husband was involved in a shooting at the local bar. She's like, I don't think it was my husband because he's sleeping right beside me. She turns over and he's actually not there. And then you're following 2 other women. One is one that survived the bar shooting, and another one is a woman where she finds out that her son was involved in the shooting. So this sounds like it's going to be super fascinating, and I'm really excited to read this one. The next book that I have is The Hive by Melissa Scholes Young, and I also received this one from Keylight Books, and this one also comes out in June, and this is about a family. They own a family pest control business, and it says it's a story of survival, sisters, and secrets. So this one sounds like it's going to be very fascinating, and I'm excited to pick this one up. The next book that I have is My Mistress Eyes Are Raven Black by Terry Roberts, and this is also from Keylight Books, and this one comes out in July. This is a historical fiction. This is set in the 1920s, and this young pregnant woman ends up disappearing from a isolation hospital on Ellis Island, and this man ends up taking the case, and when he gets there, he finds out there's a lot of mysterious disappearances from the same hospital. So he's trying to figure out what is going on there. So this sounds super fascinating. I love books that are set in the 1920s and set around like an isolation type of hospital. So super excited to read this one. The next book that I have is Paradise, West Virginia by Rob Rufus, and I also received this one from Keylight Books, and this one comes out in July, and this one is about 2 teenagers. Their father is convicted of being a serial killer. He is serving his time in prison, and then a true crime podcast comes to their town to do a story on their father. Well, while they're there, another girl goes missing, and it's very similar to how the serial killer killed his victims, I guess you want to say. So they are not sure that this guy is actually the correct serial killer. So this sounds like it's going to be super fascinating. I love books about serial killers and then also about true crime podcasts. So I'm really excited to pick this one up. The next book that I have is a book that I won from a giveaway on Instagram, and it is The Paris Dressmaker by Christy Cambron, and this is a World War II historical fiction, and it is set in Paris, and it's also about the French resistance. So I'm really excited to read this one. I've seen really great reviews, and I'm really excited that I won this one. And the only book that I purchased this month was Of Women and Salt by Gabriela Garcia, and this book is about a woman. She is a Cuban immigrant who lives in the United States, and she ends up traveling back to Cuba just to figure out her family history. So this sounds like it's going to be really great. I love books set in different countries, and this one's really short. I wasn't expecting this one to be so short, but really excited to pick this one up. So those are all the books that I received this month. Let me know in the comments if you've read these books and what you thought about them, or let me know which books you're interested in. And until then, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!